Hi, Rose. So anyway, here we are in the Piazza del Duomo, the magnificent religious centre of the city. Behind me, obviously, the cathedral, Santa Maria del Fiore, which was begun in 1296. And over here we have the baptistry, an 11th century building. And it is, in fact, the most important building, religious building anyway, in Florence, because, of course, here you would be baptised. It's called the Baptistry of St. John. Shall we go and have a look at the gates, or the doors? The second set of bronze doors, which were made by Lorenzo Ghiberti in the middle of the 1400s, actually show 10 stories from the Bible, from the Old Testament. And they are incredible in fact that you see the way he has incorporated 3-dimension in sculpture, in low-leaf sculpture. So obviously these have been restored and cleaned, but they are absolutely magnificent. Known as the Gates of Paradise, of course, because Michelangelo called them that. He was walking past every day as a child and would have seen them and admired them and said, if any gates are worthy of paradise, these must be them. So the name, of course, stuck. Then, of course, going back to looking at the facade of the cathedral, it is a neo-Gothic facade, finished in the 1870s, 1880s, but still magnificent. And, of course, we have Jotter's bell tower, begun and designed by the great artist Jotter. This is a very important monument too, of course. So built with local Tuscan marble. The pink marble comes from Siena, the green from Prato, and the white is the white Carrara marble, which of course was used all over Florence in the baptistry, and also Michelangelo's statues would be made from marble from those quarries. Now this is the moment that you've all been waiting for, especially you, Rose. I know you want to hear about the story of the Patsys and how the Patsys came to be the worst family, that nobody ever wanted to even mention their name after what they did to the Medici family. Now this is a brutal and tragic event which would take place in Florence in 1478. In fact, it happened inside the cathedral on Easter Sunday, 26th of April. Now it all came about because, of course, the Medici family were papal bankers. They lent money to the popes, and Pope Sixtus IV had asked Lorenzo the Magnificent for a huge amount of money, 40,000 ducats. He needed it to buy Imola near Milan, and of course Imola is on the route between Florence and Venice, so it's a trading route, and he was desperate also to get his hands on Florence, and of course Lorenzo knew that, so he was not going to lend money. This is Lorenzo the Magnificent was not going to lend any money to Pope Sixtus IV. So what does the Pope do? The Pope decides to ask other banking families in Florence to lend the money, and they agree. The main family was the Patsy family. They were actually giving them the most money possible, but with the agreement that they would actually be able to get control themselves over Florence. Now, a lot of people were anti-Medici at the time, and they were keen to get their hands on the political ruling of the city as well. And the Pope's nephews were involved, the Archbishop of Pisa, and a whole load of other people that just were anti-Medici. Now, of course, the Medici were living just down the road there. This is the Medici Palace. You can see where the flags are flying. It's the palace on the left-hand side. This is where they lived. They were right close to the religious centre of the city. And the Patsy family plotted to kill them. The Pope had said, don't let there be any bloodshed, just get them exiled out of the city. Originally they would actually plan to poison them. So there was a dinner party a few days before Easter Sunday. Unfortunately the whole thing went completely wrong because Giuliano, Lorenzo the Magnificent's younger brother, didn't turn up. He had hurt his leg, maybe he'd fallen off his horse, but he wasn't at the dinner party, so it was extremely difficult for them to murder both brothers. Giuliano at the time was 26 years old, and Lorenzo, who was the main man in Florence, he was, let's say, the ruler of the city, he was 29 years old. So the whole plan backfired at the dinner party. They didn't manage to poison them. They decided they would have to wait. And so just the night before, on the Saturday evening, they decided that the best moment for them to do it would be inside the cathedral at Mass on Easter Sunday. So what happens is hundreds of people were inside ready for Mass to start. They realised right before Mass was due to start that Giuliano de' Medici still wasn't in the cathedral. Where was he? And Lorenzo just turned around and said, well, look, he's got this bad leg. He can't make it. And they said, no, he has to be here. This is Easter Sunday. It's one of the most important religious holidays. So they stopped Mass. They rode to the palace. They picked him up. Well, they went upstairs, got him out of his bed, put him in a carriage and brought him to the main square, in through the doors, the gates of the cathedral. As he went in, Mass began. The doors closed and were locked behind. Everybody bowed their heads in those days to pray. Nobody sat on pews. So you can imagine the hundreds and hundreds of people all crammed together. Lorenzo was right up at the front. As soon as they bowed their heads to pray, they were attacked. Giuliano de' Medici, Lorenzo's younger brother, was brutally murdered, stabbed hundreds of times, whereas Lorenzo, being near the front, near the main altar, luckily his friend, Agnolo Polizzano, the scholar who taught the Medici family Greek, pushed him into the north sacristy, locked the doors and saved his life. He was wounded in the neck, he'd been stabbed in the arm. Agnolo Polizzano actually managed to suck the poison out from his wounds, because in those days they would poison daggers. So if you didn't die immediately, you would die later of poisoning. He spat out the poison, he bandaged quickly Lorenzo's wounds and managed to get him back into the Medici home, the Medici Palace. After that, you can imagine what happened. Anybody that was involved in this conspiracy was rounded up in the main square here and murdered on the spot. Two of the Patsy conspirators actually went to the Medici Palace, well, to the Palazzo Vecchio actually, to the main town hall, which is just further down the road there, and they started ringing the bells. They were overjoyed. The Medici family had fallen. That was it. A new era would begin, but that would never happen. Of course, soon the word went round that this was the end. This was a tragic event, yes, but Lorenzo was still alive. The days to follow would see bodies being dragged through the city centre, especially of the Patsy family. Guglielmo de' Patsy, who was actually married to Lorenzo the Magnificent's sister, Bianca, was exiled out of the city. But anybody else whose name was Patsy was either brutally murdered or told never to return to the city of Florence. So a tragic day. Lorenzo lost his brother, but what he did manage to do was save Florence from being actually engulfed by the Papal States and Pope Sixtus IV. Pope Sixtus IV all this time had just been sitting comfortably on his throne. His nephews, unfortunately, were murdered, but he did nothing. In fact, he still carried on trying to convince Lorenzo on other subjects. At the end, though, what happens was that Lorenzo managed to go to Naples, where he was friends with the King of Naples, and the King of Naples actually signed a treaty which would enable Florence and both Naples to keep out of the Papal States, or rather have the Pope keeping out from these important cities. So one of the reasons Lorenzo the Magnificent is actually known as the Magnificent is, yes, he was in fact a great poet, a wonderful collector and patron of the arts. Everybody adored him, but he was a great political leader. Thank you.